The drive home from my lawyer's office should have been one of the happiest of my life. I had the windows down, the humid Atlanta air rushing through the car, and a notarized copy of the transfer confirmation sitting on the passenger seat. $750,000. I had spent nearly 33 years building something from nothing. Now I was about to give a piece of it to my daughter and her husband so they could stop renting that cramped duplex in Marietta and finally have a real home. A yard for the grandchildren I hoped were coming someday. A workshop for her husband's woodworking. A kitchen large enough for holiday dinners. I was 64 years old, and I felt like I was 30. My daughter had no idea I was coming. I wanted to surprise her. I must have rehearsed what I would say 100 times on the drive over. I planned to tell her that her mother, God rest her soul, had always dreamed of this moment. That the money from selling my second logistics company wasn't just mine, it was hers too, in every way that counted. I had a folder on the seat with me, pre-approval letter from the bank, a note from my attorney outlining the gift structure to avoid tax issues. I had thought of everything. I pulled into the parking lot of their apartment complex just before noon on a Wednesday. My daughter worked from home on Wednesdays. I knew her husband had Wednesdays off from the optometry clinic where he was a manager. I figured I'd catch them together, maybe take them to lunch after, let the news settle over a good meal. I parked, grabbed the folder, and walked toward their building. Their unit was on the 3rd floor at the end of the outdoor hallway. I was climbing the stairs when I heard her voice through their partially open window, my daughter-in-law, speaking fast, the way she did when she was excited or upset. I slowed down without thinking. He doesn't know anything, Mom. He has no idea how much the man is actually worth. I stopped. I told myself she could be talking about anyone. A friend. A client from the clinic. I stood very still on the stairwell landing. I listened. And I hated myself for listening, but I could not make myself stop. Emma thinks her dad sold the company for maybe $400,000. She told me that herself. But I looked it up, Mom. I found the press release. It sold for $2.1 million. A pause. I know. But listen. If we can get him to put the house in both our names, and he will, Mom. He loves Emma so much, he'd give her anything. Then when we file, I get half. Georgia is an equitable distribution state. Half of everything acquired during the marriage. Another pause. Longer this time. Emma doesn't need to know any of this until after. She'll be upset for a while, but she'll get over it. Men always do. Women too. The point is, we'd both walk away with something real, something that couldn't disappear. I stood on that landing for what felt like a very long time. The folder in my hand felt suddenly heavy. I looked down at the bank letter, at my attorney's signature, at the number I had written in the margin in my own handwriting. 33 years. I thought about the drive over, the open windows, the plan. I walked back down the stairs very quietly. I got in my car. I sat there for a few minutes, looking at nothing. Then I drove home. I want to be honest about something because I think it matters. My first feeling was not anger. It wasn't even hurt. My first feeling was a kind of cold, hollow grief, the kind that settles in your chest and doesn't move. Because in the span of about 90 seconds I had learned two things at once. First, my daughter-in-law was planning to use my love for my daughter as a weapon. Second, and this one was harder, my daughter had no idea. Whatever was being planned, it was being planned alone, or with her mother. My daughter was as much a target as I was. I had liked my daughter-in-law. I want to say that plainly. I had liked Lauren from the first time my daughter brought her home 5 years ago. She was sharp, funny, she laughed at my terrible jokes, and she always remembered how I took my coffee. When they got married 2 years later, I danced with her at the reception. I meant every word of the toast I gave. I never had a daughter. I had thought, foolishly, that maybe I had found one. I drove home, I made coffee. I sat at the kitchen table where my wife and I had sat for 23 years before she passed. And I thought carefully. I knew one thing without doubt. I was not going to tell my daughter what I had heard. Not yet. If I told her, one of two things would happen. Either she wouldn't believe me and I would lose her in the argument that followed, or she would believe me, and the confrontation would be immediate and explosive. Lauren would deny everything. There would be no proof. The whole thing would dissolve into accusations and counterclaims. My daughter would be left with nothing but confusion and a marriage blown apart on the word of her father's memory of a conversation through a window. I had no recording, no witness. I had a folder and 33 years of work. And the word of a man who, in that moment, had the most obvious motive to make his daughter's wife look bad. So I did not tell her. Not that day. Instead, I called my attorney, a woman named Sharon, who had handled my business contracts for nearly 20 years and was one of the sharpest people I knew. I told her what I had heard, word for word, as precisely as I could remember. Sharon listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "You didn't sign anything yet?" she said. "No. I was going to do it in person." "Good. Then nothing has changed on paper." She paused. "Give me a few days. Don't do anything. Don't change your behavior. Don't cancel plans or avoid them. Just act completely normal." "Normal," I repeated. "Normal," she said. "Can you do that?" I said I could. I wasn't sure I was telling the truth, but I said it anyway. The following Saturday was my daughter's birthday. We had plans for dinner, the three of us, at a seafood place she loved downtown. I ironed a shirt. I bought her a gift, a leather journal she had mentioned once, 8 months ago, because I was the kind of father who wrote things like that down. I drove to the restaurant. I hugged my daughter. I kissed my daughter-in-law on the cheek. I sat down across from them. I smiled. I ate my salmon. I toasted my daughter's 34th birthday. And the whole time, there was a sound in my head like a radio playing in another room, low, persistent, impossible to turn off. Lauren was warm that night, attentive. She refilled my water glass before I asked. She laughed at my stories about my daughter as a kid. She touched her hand across the table. My daughter looked at her the way young people in love look at their partners, with that particular softness you can't fake. I had to look away. My daughter had no idea. On Monday, Sharon called me back. "I had someone do some preliminary research," she said. "Your daughter-in-law's mother filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy 22 months ago. 2 civil judgments against her from creditors, both active. And your daughter-in-law herself, this is interesting, had a prior marriage, ended in divorce 5 years ago. She was married for 10 months. I was quiet. Her ex-husband, Sharon continued, received a settlement from a personal injury case roughly 7 months into their marriage. The divorce filing came 3 months later. She received half the settlement as marital property under Georgia's equitable distribution laws. I set down my coffee cup. She had done this before. "I can't tell you what she's done," Sharon said carefully. "I can only tell you what the public record shows. But I can tell you this. If her plan is what you overheard, it's not impulsive. This is someone who understands exactly how the law works." I asked her what she thought I should do. "That's up to you," she said. "But if I were in your position, I'd want to understand 2 things. 1. How committed is she to this plan? Is it real, or just venting to her mother? And 2, how much does your daughter actually know about her own marriage?" Those were the right questions. I had been circling them for days. I called my daughter that afternoon and asked if she wanted to come over for dinner Thursday. "Just the 2 of us," I said. I told her I had some things to talk through about the estate planning I'd been working on. Nothing urgent. Just wanted to keep her in the loop. She said of course she'd be there at 7. What I did not tell her was that I had quietly restructured the gift that same morning. Instead of a direct cash gift toward a joint home purchase, Sharon had drawn up a different arrangement. A family trust with my daughter as the sole beneficiary. The trust could purchase property, but the property would be held in the trust's name, not in the individual's names. In the event of a divorce, trust assets were not subject to division in the same way. Not impenetrable, Sharon warned, but substantially more protected than writing a check and watching it disappear. When my daughter came to dinner Thursday, I made her mother's pot roast. We ate. We talked about her work. She was a project coordinator for a design firm, and about the Braves. and about a kayaking trip she was planning in the spring. She seemed happy. Genuinely, straightforwardly happy. The way a person is happy when they don't know there's a reason not to be. After dinner, I brought out Sharon's documents and walked her through the trust structure. I watched her face carefully. She was grateful, was almost overwhelmed. She asked me twice if I was sure. I told her twice that I was sure. She didn't ask a single question about Lauren, about her name being on the property, about what would happen in a divorce. It didn't occur to her to ask. That told me everything I needed to know about where her head was. She called Lauren from my kitchen table to tell her the news. I watched her while she talked, watched her face, watched the way she smiled. I heard Lauren's voice through the phone, excited, high and fast. I kept my own face very still. Lauren asked whether the property would be in both their names. My daughter said she hadn't asked. It was a trust. It was complicated. She'd explain when she got home. There was a pause I could hear even from across the table. Then Lauren said, "That's wonderful. Just wonderful." She couldn't wait to hear everything. My daughter hung up and grinned at me. "She's excited," she said. "I can imagine," I said. "I want to tell you that what happened over the next few weeks was easy or satisfying, like in the movies, where justice arrives cleanly and everyone learns their lesson and the credits roll. It wasn't like that. It was slow and uncomfortable. There were moments when I genuinely questioned whether I was doing the right thing, whether I was being paranoid, whether I had misunderstood what I heard on that landing. But then Sharon called me with one more piece of information. A colleague in family law had recently been consulted preliminarily and unofficially by a woman regarding the division of trust assets in a Georgia divorce. The consultation went nowhere, Sharon said, because trust assets held in a properly structured family trust were not, in fact, easily divided. The woman had left disappointed. Sharon did not tell me the woman's name. She didn't have to. "How do you want to handle this?" she asked. I thought about it for a long time. I thought about my daughter's face at the kitchen table, the way she had smiled when she called Lauren. I thought about the birthday dinner, the hand across the table, the softness in her eyes. I thought about my wife, who had loved our daughter with a ferocity I had always found breathtaking, who once told me that the only job a parent really has is to make sure their children land safely. I told Sharon I wanted to tell my daughter everything, all of it. The landing, the phone call, the prior marriage, the bankruptcy, the consultation with the family law attorney, all laid out plainly, with the documentation Sharon had gathered. So my daughter could not dismiss it as one man's word or jealousy or paranoia. Sharon said she thought that was the right call. She said she would prepare a summary document. I asked my daughter to come over on a Sunday afternoon, 2 weeks later. I told her I needed to talk about something serious and that she should come alone. She asked if I was sick. I told her no. She asked what it was about. I said I would explain everything when she got there. She arrived at 2 o'clock on a gray October afternoon. She sat down at the kitchen table, the same chairs. I put Sharon's summary document in front of her and told her to read it before I said anything. She started reading. I watched her face change, the way a landscape changes when a cloud passes over the sun. Slowly at first, then all at once. When she finished, she looked up at me. She didn't say anything for a long moment. "The prior marriage," she said. "Yes." She told me she'd never been married. Her voice was very flat. "I know." She looked back down at the document. I could see her reading the dates again, checking the math, the way you check math when some part of you is hoping you added wrong. "You heard this 3 weeks ago," she said, "and you didn't tell me." "I needed to be sure," I said. "I needed you to be able to see it on paper, not just take my word for it. I knew how it would sound if I came to you with nothing but what I thought I heard through a window. I wanted you to have something real in your hands." She was quiet again. Outside, a car passed on the street. A neighbor's dog was barking somewhere. "I don't know what to do," she said. "You don't have to know today," I said. "You don't have to know tomorrow." I stood up and put my hand on her shoulder. I felt her take a breath. "She doesn't know you know any of this?" she asked. "No." "And the trust, the property trust, she can't get to that in a divorce." "Sharon will walk you through it. But the short answer is no. Not the way she was planning." She nodded slowly. She looked down at the table. She looked like a person making calculations that had nothing to do with numbers. "What did she mean," my daughter asked, "when she said the money couldn't disappear?" I had been wondering when she would get to that line. I said carefully that Lauren might have financial concerns of her own, ones my daughter might not be fully aware of. Then I told her about the bankruptcy, the judgments, the debts. I told her gently, and I told her completely. I watched her take it in, the way you watch someone absorb news that reorganizes everything they thought they knew. It is a particular kind of pain, that reorganization. I had felt it myself standing on a stairwell landing on a Wednesday morning with a folder in my hand. I wished I could take it from her. I couldn't. What happened after that was between my daughter and her wife. I will not pretend to know all of it, because she did not tell me all of it, nor should she have. I know they had a conversation that lasted most of a night. I know Lauren did not deny the prior marriage for long. The documents were right there. I know she cried. I know she said things that were true and things that were not entirely true. My daughter sat across from her and tried to figure out which was which. I know that at some point Lauren called her mother. I know my daughter asked her to leave the apartment for a few days. I know she went. I know my daughter called me at 6:30 in the morning 2 days later. I was awake. I had not been sleeping much. "Did you mean it?" she said. "The trust, the money, all of it." Of course I meant it. Even now, especially now. That money is for you. It has always been for you. It has nothing to do with her. She was quiet on the line for a moment. "I keep thinking about Mom," she said. "So do I said. "She would have known," my daughter said. "She would have seen it from the beginning. She always knew." "Maybe," I said. "Your mother was smarter than both of us." She made a sound that was almost a laugh. Almost. "What do I do?" "I don't know," I said, because it was true. "But I know you'll figure it out. And I know I'll be here either way." There is an impulse when you tell a story like this to wrap it neatly, to tell you that my daughter divorced her wife and eventually found someone wonderful, or that her wife came to her with genuine remorse and they rebuilt something honest. I am not going to tell you which of those things happened because it is still happening. And it is my daughter's story more than it is mine. She deserves the privacy of working through it without her father narrating it to strangers. What I will tell you is this. Sharon helped my daughter speak with a family law attorney of her own. My daughter now understands her situation clearly and completely. The trust is intact. The property was purchased quietly in the fall. A 3-bedroom house in a suburb northeast of Atlanta with a yard and a garage and a kitchen big enough for holiday dinners, if holiday dinners ever become possible again. My daughter's name is on the trust documents. Her children's names, if she has children someday, are on the remainder clause. Her wife's name is not. Lauren's mother called me once, about a month after everything came out. I don't know how she got my number. She called in the evening and told me I had destroyed her daughter's marriage and her daughter's future, that I was a vindictive old man who had never given Lauren a fair chance. She said quite a few other things as well. I let her finish. Then I told her, very calmly, that her daughter had made a plan and executed it against a woman who loved her. The only thing I had done was make sure that plan didn't succeed. I told her that if she wanted to be angry at someone for how things had turned out, she might want to start with the conversation she'd had on a Wednesday morning about equitable distribution law and an optometry manager's plan for the future. She hung up. I poured myself a glass of bourbon and sat in the backyard until it was dark. The neighbor's dog was barking again somewhere down the block. The Atlanta sky was doing what it does in October, that particular bruised purple that looks like a painting no one would believe was real. I thought about 33 years of work, about a woman who had loved me until she couldn't anymore, and had left me with a daughter instead, the greatest gift I had ever received and the most terrifying responsibility I had ever held, about a stairwell landing and a folder and a notarized transfer confirmation sitting in the passenger seat of a car. I thought about how close I had come to walking up those stairs, knocking on that door, sitting down at their kitchen table, and handing over everything I had with both hands open. I have been asked, by the few people I trust enough to tell this story to, whether I feel any guilt, whether I feel like I was spying or manipulating or playing some kind of long game no parent should play with their child's marriage. I have thought about that question seriously because I think it deserves a serious answer. Here is what I know. I did not choose to hear what I heard. I did not record it or repeat it carelessly or use it to humiliate anyone publicly. I took what I heard to a lawyer, verified it against the public record, and then gave my daughter the information she needed to make her own decisions about her own life. At no point did I tell her what to decide. At no point did I take any action that was not either protective of her or completely within my own rights as the person whose money was at stake. I am 64 years old. I have made 1,000 mistakes in my life, as a business owner, as a husband, as a father. I'm not particularly interested in pretending to be a saint, but standing on that landing and choosing not to knock on that door and going home and thinking it through, I do not believe that was a mistake. I believe that was the first right decision in what turned out to be a long series of decisions that needed to be made. And I believe that my daughter, whatever she decides about her marriage, is standing on ground that belongs to her. Ground that cannot be taken from her. Ground that will be there when she needs it. Her mother always said the only job a parent ever really has is to make sure their children land safely. I think she would say, my daughter is going to land just fine.